The World Cup starts on Monday. Here are some facts to get you ready for the world's biggest sports tournament. Hi there, everyone. I'm Jeff, and this is Plain English lesson number 521 for Thursday, November 17th, 2022. That means we are getting close to the opening ceremonies of the World Cup next week. I will watch some of the games. If you've been listening long enough, you've heard my thoughts on the foolishness, waste, and corruption of the Olympics and the World Cup. I do try to put that out of my mind during the games themselves. So today, we'll get ready for the most watched sporting tournament in the world. The expression is risk it, and we have a song of the week. JR has uploaded today's full lesson to plainenglish.com/521. Let's get going. The World Cup is the most watched sporting tournament in the world. 32 country teams compete in a multi-round tournament every 4 years. This will be the 22nd World Cup. FIFA, the organizing body of soccer, began hosting the World Cup in 1930. The location changes every time. This year's tournament will be in the small, scorching hot Middle Eastern nation of Qatar. And for that reason, this will be the first World Cup held in November, which is winter in the Northern Hemisphere. The tournament has always been held in mid-year around June, but temperatures in Qatar can reach 50 degrees Celsius in June, so tournament organizers moved it to November, when daily high temperatures are closer to 25 or 30 degrees Celsius. With a population of less than 3 million, Qatar is one of the smallest countries to host a World Cup. Recent hosts include Russia, Brazil, South Africa, and Germany, each one many times the size of Qatar. The first tournament was in Uruguay, which, in terms of population, is similar to Qatar today. This World Cup will be spread across only 8 stadiums. There will be 64 games in total, and most tournaments have many more stadiums. Before planning the World Cup, Qatar had a total of 1 stadium suitable for gameplay. It constructed 7 more from scratch. 2 are in Doha, the capital, but the other 6 are within easy commuting distance. One advantage to a small country host is that it's easy for visitors to get from one stadium to the next. All stadiums are within a 55-kilometer radius of Doha. These 7 new stadiums, by the way, are air-conditioned. Now, if you're picturing an enclosed stadium, that's not exactly right. Qatar is air conditioning stadiums with open roofs. To do this, they're creating a bubble of air that will be kept at 21 degrees Celsius. Fans and players will be in the bubble. An airflow system captures rising air, sucks it back down into the stadium, cools it with cold water, and blasts it out again at field level and in the stands. Sensors will adjust the cold air flow to account for seats in the sun and in the shade. If you're worried about the environmental impact of this, Qatar assures us the tournament will be carbon neutral. The air conditioning will be powered by a massive solar energy farm nearby. Qatar built a new metro system, 100 hotels, and several new roads in preparation for this 4-week event. Every World Cup has its own official ball. This one is by Adidas, and the design is called Al Rihla Pro, which means the journey in Arabic. Each squad will have 26 men. This has increased from 23 in the past. Video replay will be used again this year. A new system will help referees make offsides calls faster. The system includes 12 cameras that track the ball and all players. Going into the tournament, Brazil has the best odds to win, followed by France, England, and Argentina. 4-time winner Italy failed to qualify this year. Qatar's national team will be playing. They qualified as host country. If you're planning your trip to Qatar, there are a few things you might want to know before you get on that flight. Number 1, drinking alcohol is illegal in Qatar. So, obviously, is being drunk. The penalty is a fine of $850 and 6 months in jail. I do not know if Qatari jails are air-conditioned, but I wouldn't count on it. There will be no alcohol served at the stadiums, but the Qatari government will set up designated areas where fans can legally consume alcohol. Nothing says a good time like a designated area, right? Promoting same-sex relationships is illegal in Qatar. Some hotels on FIFA's recommended list were refusing to accept reservations from same-sex couples, but they were later reprimanded. The government will not be setting up designated areas where free speech on same-sex relationships is allowed. However, they have graciously promised not to arrest same-sex couples for holding hands. I still wouldn't risk it. Soccer or football. In the US, we call the game soccer. In Britain, they call it football. And in most of the world, it's some variation on that word, football. However, it's not only America that calls it soccer. And if you want a refresher on that, you can check out lesson 55, plainenglish.com/55. That's where we talked about where people say soccer and where they say football. Today's expression is risk it. That simply means to take the risk or to do a risky thing. We often use risk it when the context is already known in the sentence. So, for example, if you leave your house and you look up at the sky and it's getting cloudy, you might want to bring an umbrella. There's a chance it will rain, and if it rains, you'll get wet. but you might decide to risk it. You might decide to take the risk and go out without your umbrella. Well, I recently moved to Mexico. I spent the first month in a temporary apartment, but I've just moved into my full-time apartment here, and I discovered that internet service providers here are just like they are back home. They give you a nice wide window for installation. So they said from 2 o'clock until 8 o'clock, I have to be home for service. It's about 3 o'clock now, and I'm starving. Should I go out and get some lunch? Should I risk it? Should I take the risk of going out and missing the installation crew? I'm not going to risk it. This is too important. I have a little bit of food. I don't think it adds up to lunch, but I do have a little bit of food in my brand new refrigerator. I'm not going to risk it. I'm not going to take the risk of going out for lunch and missing my internet installation. Some things are just too important, right? If you are a same-sex couple, and if you are a football fan, and if you are traveling to the World Cup, then the government of Qatar has a message for you. Yes, ordinarily, you would be arrested and put in jail for things like holding hands, kissing, displaying a rainbow flag, or advocating for LGBT rights. But during the World Cup, you will not be arrested for such things. See how nice they are? And right at the end of the lesson, I said, I still wouldn't risk it. Why wouldn't I risk it? I'm not totally sure that this message has gotten all the way down to every police officer in Qatar. I would not want to be in a Qatari jail for a public display of affection. I just would not risk it. You can say, let's not risk it, or I don't think we should risk it, if you want to convince someone not to take the risk. Imagine you're going on an international flight and you have a flight connection in your destination country. The airline suggests a connection of an hour. Should you risk it? Well, what are we risking here? Well, when you land, you might have to go through immigration. It's not like connecting a flight inside your own country. You also might have to collect your bags, put them through security again. So the airline puts you on a flight with an hour-long connection. But should you risk it? If you're debating this with your friends or family, you might say, let's not risk it. That means let's not take this risk. Let's book a flight with a longer connection. Today's song of the week is Leather and Lace by Stevie Nicks with Don Henley. Stevie Nicks was the lead singer of the band Fleetwood Mac, and Don Henley was the lead singer of the Eagles. Anyway, this is a song about a couple that had different styles. One was like leather, the other like lace. Two very different types of materials. And this was somewhat autobiographical, since Stevie Nicks and Don Henley were a couple for a while. Well, a couple of you have asked, I don't think I can do extra episodes about the World Cup this time. 4 years ago, I added an extra episode in the middle of the week with the latest news from the tournament, but since then, each lesson has gotten a lot more complicated, and I have to prepare them too far in advance. Plus, I also know nothing about soccer, so it's not like they would be easy to write. But maybe in early January, we can revisit the highlights of this year's tournament. Enjoy the games next week. We'll be back on Monday with a new Plain English. See you then.